The Galactic Pilot Academy's Grand Hall fell silent as Administrator Zextal's crystalline form shimmered with barely contained agitation. The holographic displays showing the latest applicant statistics cast a pale blue glow across the assembled faculty members' diverse forms, from the gaseous Neptunians to the silicon-based crystalloids. "You must be mistaken." Zextal's voice resonated through their crystalline structure. "These readings cannot be correct. The application clearly states the candidates are from Earth." Chief Medical Officer Valara, her tentacles writhing in agitation, projected the medical scans onto the main display. "The data is accurate, Administrator. We've run the analysis 17 times. These humans come from a Class 12 death world. Their planet has multiple active tectonic plates, extreme temperature variations, and atmospheric pressure fluctuations that would kill most sentient species." The assembled faculty erupted in murmurs. The Academy, prestigious for over 15,000 cycles, had never admitted species from anything higher than a Class 8 world. The risks were simply too great. Yet they passed the preliminary trials. Flight Instructor Krax pointed out, his metallic exoskeleton clicking as he shifted position. "Not just passed. They exceeded every benchmark we've established in the last century." The holoscreen shifted to display footage from the trials. 3 humans, Sarah Chen, Marcus Rodriguez, and Aisha Patel, moving through simulation chambers with a grace that seemed impossible for beings from such a high-gravity world. They handled pressure changes that would have crushed most applicants, temperature swings that should have induced immediate shock, and radiation levels that would have killed most species. "Their methods are unorthodox," Training Director Elix noted, their bioluminescent patterns flashing with concern. The footage showed Sarah Chen manually overriding a navigation system during a crisis simulation, Marcus Rodriguez using primitive mechanical tools instead of standard quantum implements, and Aisha Patel seemingly ignoring safety protocols to achieve mission objectives. Unorthodox. Zextal's crystal structure vibrated with incredulity. "They're completely ignoring centuries of established procedures. Look at this. They're not even using neural interfaces for ship control. They're operating everything manually." "But they're succeeding," Krax insisted, bringing up the performance metrics. "Their reaction times in crisis situations are off the charts. They're solving problems our current students spend cycles analyzing, and they're doing it in minutes." Valera's tentacles curled thoughtfully. "Perhaps that's precisely because they don't rely on our technology. Their species evolved on a planet that tries to kill them daily. They've developed adaptability we can barely comprehend." The footage shifted to a particularly striking moment during the trials, a simulation of a catastrophic engine failure designed to test emergency protocols. While most candidates followed standard procedures, running diagnostics, engaging backup systems, following emergency checklists, Sarah Chen had done something entirely different. She'd shut down all systems, used the ship's momentum to slingshot around a nearby moon, and managed to safely crash land using only manual controls and what she called basic physics. "It's not just their physical capabilities," Yilix observed, their patterns shifting to a thoughtful blue. "Look at how they process information. No neural augments, no quantum computing assistance, just raw pattern recognition and intuitive problem-solving." Zextal's structure settled into what passed for resignation among their species. The Academy's charter is clear. Any species that passes the trials must be considered for admission, regardless of their origin. "But the risks." "With respect, Administrator," Krax interrupted, "perhaps we should be more concerned about the risk of not admitting them. The galaxy is changing. The old threats are evolving. Maybe what we need isn't more pilots who can follow protocols perfectly, but pilots who can think beyond them." The room fell silent again as the footage looped back to the beginning. The 3 humans, standing before the Academy's entrance, looking up at its towering spires with expressions that the alien faculty were still learning to read. There was something in their stance, their bearing, that spoke of more than just confidence or ambition. Very well, Zextal finally declared, their crystal structure taking on the formal patterns of an official declaration. Admit them, but establish new safety protocols, monitor them constantly, and... They paused, their structure briefly flickering with what might have been anticipation. Prepare the faculty for what I suspect will be a very educational experience. As the faculty filed out of the hall, Valera lingered, her tentacles weaving complex patterns in the air. You know, she said to no one in particular, in all our years of searching the stars for advanced civilizations, we never considered that advancement might look different from what we expected. Perhaps these humans will teach us as much as we teach them. The holographic displays continued to cycle through the trial footage, showing moments of what the faculty had labeled as recklessness, but might have been something else entirely. The product of a species that had survived and thrived on a world that had never given them the luxury of perfect solutions or guaranteed safety. The academy was about to change, and not even its ancient halls could predict how. Flight instructor Krax watched through the observation window as Marcus Rodriguez did something that by all established academy protocols should have been impossible. The simulation pod's holographic displays showed a Category 7 solar storm, multiple system failures, and a damaged quantum drive. A scenario designed to teach students when to accept defeat and initiate emergency protocols. Instead, Marcus was singing. What is this behavior? Administrator Zextal demanded, their crystalline form vibrating with concern. The neural interfaces aren't even activated. He calls it whistling, Krax explained, his metallic exoskeleton shifting as he consulted his notes. Apparently, it helps him focus. But watch what he's doing with the controls. Marcus's hands flew across the manual interface, making micro-adjustments that somehow kept the simulated ship stable despite the cascade of system failures. The solar storm's radiation should have fried every backup system, but he was using the electromagnetic interference itself to maintain a minimal power flow through the emergency circuits. Impossible, one of the Neptunian instructors whispered, their gaseous form swirling in agitation. The calculations required for such precise management would take our most advanced computer cycles to process. He's not calculating. Sarah Chen's voice came from behind them. The instructors turned to find her leaning against the doorframe, a datapad tucked under her arm. He's feeling it. Feeling. Physics. Zextal's tone conveyed both skepticism and fascination. We grew up in variable gravity, Sarah explained, stepping forward to watch her fellow students' performance. Earth's magnetic field fluctuates. Our weather systems are chaos incarnate. We learned to feel these patterns before we could walk. On the display, Marcus had managed to establish a stable orbit around a nearby gas giant, using its magnetosphere to shield against the worst of the solar storm. The ship's systems were operating at less than 10% capacity, but he had somehow achieved a sustainable configuration that would keep the crew alive until help arrived. But this violates at least 17 safety protocols. Yilix protested, their bioluminescent patterns flashing with distress. The manual override alone. Protocols are based on known solutions. Aisha Patil interrupted, joining her fellow humans at the window. But survival doesn't always follow protocol. Sometimes, you have to work with what you have. In the simulation pod, Marcus had begun humming a different tune, his fingers tapping out a rhythm on the control panel that somehow matched the fluctuations in the solar storm. He was dancing with the disaster, turning catastrophic system failures into a complex ballet of power management and orbital mechanics. This is the third impossible scenario he's survived this week, Krax noted, pulling up the statistics. And it's not just him. All three of our human students are showing similar adaptability. The observation room's displays shifted to show Sarah's latest test flight, a simulation of navigating through an uncharted asteroid field. While other students relied on quantum calculations and predetermined flight paths, she had turned off the navigation computer entirely, claiming it was too slow. She flew by sight and instinct, responding to the gravitational eddies and debris patterns in real time. They're changing how other students think, Valder observed, her tentacles weaving thoughtful patterns. Yesterday, I found a group of crystalloid students attempting to understand ship systems without neural interfaces. They said they wanted to feel the ship's heartbeat, a very human phrase. Administrator Zextel's structure took on the complex patterns that indicated deep thought. Perhaps we have become too dependent on our technological advantages. We've forgotten what it means to truly understand our environment. The simulation ended with Marcus achieving a stable configuration that, while completely unorthodox, had preserved both ship and crew. As he emerged from the pod, still humming, the other students gathered around him. Their various appendages and sensory organs focused intently on his explanation of what he'd done. "Look at them," Aisha said softly. "They're not asking about calculations or protocols. They're asking about how it felt, how he knew when to push and when to yield. They're learning to trust their instincts." Instincts evolved on a death world, Valder amused, where every day was a survival test, and every solution had to work the first time. The Academy's ancient halls, designed to teach the precise science of space navigation, were now echoing with terms like gut feeling and intuitive response. Students who had relied entirely on neural interfaces were requesting manual control training. The rigid hierarchy of technological advancement was being challenged by beings who had learned to survive through understanding rather than automation. "We should revise the curriculum," Crax suggested, his exoskeleton clicking with excitement. "Not abandon our methods, but expand them. Combine our technology with their adaptability." Administrator Zextel's crystalline form shifted through a complex series of patterns before settling into one that none of the human students had seen before, something that might have been hope. "Indeed," they said. "After all, the greatest discoveries in galactic history have often come not from following established paths, but from finding new ways to walk them." As if to emphasize the point, Marcus's voice carried through the observation window as he explained his solution to his fellow students. "The universe doesn't care about our protocols. It cares about physics, about balance, about the dance between order and chaos. Learn that dance, feel its rhythm, and you can survive anything." The Academy was changing, one impossible solution at a time. The Academy's emergency sirens shattered the usual serenity of deep space. Red warning lights pulsed through the crystalline corridors as Administrator Zextel's voice resonated through the emergency broadcast system. "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Unknown anomaly detected in the Nexus Gate. All traffic suspended. All students report to emergency stations." In the main control room, Sarah Chen stared at the readings with growing concern. The Nexus Gate, the Academy's primary faster-than-light travel hub, was experiencing unprecedented fluctuations. The quantum field that enabled safe passage through hyperspace was destabilizing, and 3 transport ships carrying new students were trapped inside. "The automated systems aren't responding," a crystalloid technician reported, their form flickering with distress. "The quantum matrices are rejecting all standard protocols." "Because they're thinking too linearly," Sarah muttered, her eyes scanning the chaotic wave patterns. She grabbed a manual interface terminal, ignoring the startled looks from the alien staff. "Aisha, Marcus, are you seeing this?" Her fellow humans were already patched in from different control stations. "It's like a storm," Marcus responded, his voice tight with concentration. "The quantum fields are behaving like weather patterns." "Exactly." Aisha's excitement cut through the tension. "It's not a technical malfunction. It's a natural phenomenon. The gates created its own ecosystem." Administrator Zextel's crystalline form vibrated with confusion. "Impossible. The gates are purely artificial constructs." "Nothing's purely artificial in space," Sarah countered, her fingers flying over the controls. "Everything interacts, evolves, finds new patterns. We've seen this on Earth, complex systems emerging from simple rules, chaos giving birth to order and back again." The main display showed the trapped ships, their shields flickering as they fought against the turbulent quantum fields. Standard emergency procedures called for a complete shutdown and reset of the gate systems, a process that would take hours the ships didn't have. "We need to stop fighting it," Marcus said suddenly. "We're trying to force the quantum fields back into their programmed patterns, but that's just making them more unstable. It's like trying to stop a tornado by throwing walls at it. What do you propose?" Valara asked, her tentacles weaving anxious patterns. "We ride it out," Sarah answered, already modifying the control interfaces, like surfing a wave. "We map the natural flow of the quantum fields and guide the ships through them." Without computational assistance, Zextal's tone carried both doubt and fear. "The variables are too complex for organic minds to process." "We don't need to process them," Aisha interrupted. "We need to feel them." Marcus remembered that hurricane simulation from Earth training. Same principle, different scale. The humans worked in concert, their hands dancing across manual controls in a way that made the alien observers both uncomfortable and fascinated. They weren't following any known protocol. Instead, they were responding to the quantum fluctuations as if they were natural forces, bending, adapting, flowing with the chaos rather than trying to control it. "Look at the pattern," Sarah called out. "It's not random. There's a rhythm to it, like ocean waves or wind currents. The gate's quantum field is breathing." On the main display, the trapped ships began to move, not in the precise, calculated paths that the Academy taught, but in flowing, organic trajectories that followed the natural contours of the quantum disturbance. The humans were literally surfing the ships through hyperspace on waves of probability. "Impossible," the crystalloid technician whispered again, but this time with awe rather than disbelief. "No," Krax corrected, his exoskeleton humming with excitement. "Not impossible. Just human." The first transport ship emerged from the gate, its hull crackling with residual quantum energy, but otherwise intact. The second followed moments later, riding a surge of probability like a surfer catching a perfect wave. The third ship, initially the most damaged, slipped through just before the quantum field began to stabilize naturally. In the aftermath, as medical teams checked the rescued students and engineering crews began studying the unprecedented event, Administrator Zextal found the three humans sitting together in the observation deck, sharing what they called coffee and discussing the incident as if it had been just another training exercise. "You knew this would work," Zextal stated, their crystalline form reflecting the starlight. "How?" Sarah smiled, cradling her coffee cup. "Because we come from a world that never stops trying to kill us. We learned long ago that you can't always control nature. Sometimes you have to work with it, dance with it, become part of its pattern. Our ancestors survived ice ages and supervolcanoes," Marcus added. "They crossed oceans in wooden boats using nothing but the stars and wind patterns for guidance. They learned to read the sky for storms and the earth for earthquakes. We've been surfing chaos since before we knew what chaos was." "The galaxy is alive," Aisha concluded softly. "All of it, from quantum fields to cosmic storms. The trick isn't to master it or control it. The trick is to join the dance." The Academy's ancient protocols were being rewritten that day, not with new technology or advanced computations, but with something far older, the accumulated survival instincts of a species that had evolved on a world where adaptability wasn't just an advantage, but a necessity for survival. The universe, it seemed, had more to teach them all. The Academy's Grand Assembly Hall had never been so crowded. Representatives from every major spacefaring civilization filled the tiered seating, their diverse forms creating a living tapestry of scales, crystals, light patterns, and metamorphic structures. At the center of the stage, Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display of the Nexus Gate incident, her presence drawing every eye in the vast chamber. "What we witnessed wasn't just a technical malfunction," she explained, manipulating the hologram to show the quantum field patterns. "It was a wake-up call. We've been approaching space travel as if the universe was a machine to be programmed. But it's not. It's alive, dynamic, constantly evolving. In the front row, Administrator Zextal's crystalline form reflected the holographic light in complex patterns. The success of your unconventional approach has led many to question our traditional methods. Not to replace them, Marcus interjected from his position near the technical controls. To enhance them. Look at this. He brought up a new display showing a hybrid interface system. We've been working with the engineering team to combine our intuitive understanding with your advanced technology. The display showed a new type of ship control system. Instead of pure neural interfaces or basic manual controls, it merged both approaches. Quantum computers still handled the complex calculations, but now they incorporated organic feedback, allowing pilots to feel spatial distortions and energy patterns. We call it the synergy system, Aisha explained, stepping forward. It combines the best of both worlds, your advanced technology and our evolutionary adaptations. The computer handles the precision, while the pilot provides the intuition. A Neptunian delegate's gaseous form swirled with skepticism. But how can we trust organic instincts over proven protocols? Because protocols can't predict everything, Sarah responded. The universe is too vast, too variable. Sometimes you need to improvise, to feel the flow of space itself. That's what saved those transport ships. The hologram shifted to show footage from recent training sessions. Academy students from various species were learning to pilot using the new hybrid system. A young crystalloid cadet navigated an asteroid field by feeling the gravitational eddies. A Neptunian student rode solar wind currents like ancient Earth sailors once rode ocean waves. The results speak for themselves. Flight instructor Krax announced, his exoskeleton gleaming as he stepped onto the stage. Average survival rates in crisis scenarios have increased by 300%. Navigation efficiency has improved by 180%. And most importantly, our students are developing a deeper understanding of space itself. Valera's tentacles wove complex patterns of agreement. We're seeing changes we never expected. Students are developing new problem-solving approaches, combining their species' natural abilities with others' perspectives. The Academy is becoming something more than just a training facility. The display showed more examples. A team of mixed species cadets using their different sensory abilities to map quantum fluctuations, study groups sharing their unique perspectives on spatial phenomena, new technologies emerging from the combination of different approaches to understanding the universe. This is what humanity has always done, Marcus said, his voice carrying through the hall. We don't just adapt to our environment. We learn from it, integrate with it, and now we're learning from you, just as you're learning from us. Administrator Zextal rose, their crystalline form catching the light in a way that commanded attention. The Academy Council has reached a decision. The new hybrid training protocols will be officially adopted across all departments. Furthermore, they paused, their structure shifting to formal patterns. We are establishing a new division, the Department of Synodaptive Studies, focusing on how different species' natural adaptations can contribute to our understanding of space travel. The announcement sent ripples of excitement through the assembly. Species that had once been considered too primitive for advanced spaceflight were being reevaluated. The hierarchy of technological advancement was giving way to a more holistic understanding of capability. There's an old saying on Earth, Sarah said, smiling at the assembled delegates. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. By combining our different perspectives, our different adaptations, we're not just becoming better pilots. We're becoming better explorers, better learners, better beings. The hologram above them shifted one final time, showing a real-time view of the Academy's ships in orbit. Their movements were different now, more fluid, more natural, as if they were part of the cosmic dance rather than merely passing through it. It was a visible symbol of how things had changed, of how the integration of human intuition with alien technology was creating something entirely new. The universe, vast and mysterious as it was, seemed a little less daunting and a lot more interesting. The Academy had taken its first steps into a new era of space exploration, one where success depended not on technological superiority alone, but on the combined wisdom of all species willing to learn from each other. 1 year after the Nexus Gate incident, the Academy's graduation ceremony looked nothing like it had in its 15,000-year history. The traditional formal procession had been replaced by something more organic, graduates from dozens of species moving in patterns that mimicked the quantum flows they had learned to navigate. From her position on the ceremonial platform, Sarah Chen watched as Marcus demonstrated the basics of dancing to a group of fascinated crystalloid younglings. Their tiny forms sparkled as they attempted to match his movements, learning to feel rhythm and flow in ways their species had never considered before. "They're getting better at it," Aisha commented, adjusting her formal uniform. "Soon, they won't need instructors at all." "That's the point," Administrator Zextal said, their crystalline form now comfortable, showing the more fluid patterns they had learned from their human students. True progress isn't about maintaining dependency, it's about fostering growth. The Great Hall's holographic displays showed scenes from the past year, the first successful test flights of ships equipped with the new synergy systems, exploration teams discovering previously undetectable spatial phenomena by combining different species' sensory abilities, rescue missions conducted with a blend of advanced technology and intuitive understanding that had saved countless lives. The Academy has received over 10,000 new applications, Valera reported, her tentacles moving in pleased patterns. Not just from traditional spacefaring species, but from worlds we once considered too primitive for advanced training. They all want to learn the new ways. Not new, Sarah corrected gently, just forgotten. Every species had to survive before they had technology. Those instincts, those adaptations, they were never obsolete. We just needed to remember how to use them. The ceremony began with a display that would have been impossible a year ago. Ships piloted by graduating students performed a complex dance through the Academy's space, weaving between solar winds and gravity wells with a grace that seemed to defy physics. Each pilot contributed their species' unique perspective to the performance. Neptunians reading pressure waves, crystalloids interpreting light patterns, humans feeling the subtle interactions of cosmic forces. "We've received an interesting proposal," Krax announced, his exoskeleton gleaming with excitement. "The Galactic Council wants to establish similar programs on other worlds. They're calling it the Integrated Space Initiative. They finally understand," Aisha said, watching a group of graduates practice what they dubbed quantum surfing, riding natural spatial phenomena for more efficient travel. It was never about humans being better. It was about showing that different doesn't mean inferior. Administrator Zextal moved to the center of the platform, their form taking on the complex patterns of formal address. "Graduates, faculty, honored guests, today marks not just the completion of your training, but the beginning of a new era in space exploration. You have learned not just to pilot ships, but to understand space itself. Not just to follow protocols, but to adapt when those protocols fail. You have learned that the greatest strength lies not in technology alone, but in the combination of all our abilities." The assembled crowd, a living rainbow of different species and forms, responded with their various expressions of approval. The traditional silence of academic ceremony had given way to something more vibrant, more alive. "And to our human friends," Zextal continued, their form shifting to include patterns they had learned from Earth's oceans, "we owe a special debt. You showed us that what we saw as limitations were actually advantages we have forgotten how to use. You reminded us that the universe is not a problem to be solved, but a dance to be joined." Sarah, Marcus, and Aisha stood together, their presence a testament to how much had changed. They weren't just the first humans to graduate from the Academy. They were the catalysts for a transformation that was spreading throughout galactic society. "So what's next?" Marcus asked, watching the ship dance continue above them. "Everything," Sarah replied, smiling as a group of mixed-species students demonstrated a new navigation technique they developed together. "We've only scratched the surface. Think about it. Every species has something unique to contribute, some perspective we haven't even discovered yet. The possibilities are endless. As if to emphasize her point, the graduation ceremony concluded with an unprecedented event. A synchronized jump through the Nexus Gate, with ships piloted by graduates of different species working in perfect harmony. They rode the quantum currents like ancient Earth surfers had once ridden waves, their movements a perfect blend of technological precision and natural intuition. The universe, it seemed, had been waiting for them all to learn this dance. And now that they had taken the first steps together, the music of the spheres had never sounded sweeter.